So Capcom put all the English dubbed episodes of Mega Man NT Warrior officially on YouTube. Here's a little story about it. Back in the early 2000s, because the dub was very, very heavily censored for Saturday morning on Kids WB and over in YTV in Canada, people were not too keen on this version of the show, so I was one of the only people that was chronicling the English dub cast. The second series of NT Warrior had this character named Beastman, who was renamed to Savage Man in the dub, and he had this sort of deep Dr. Claw voice that sounded kind of like this.
Your worst nightmare here for some serious payback.
Now, determining what actor that was a little difficult for people, but this show was one of the rare cases where they actually had the name of the actor and the name of the character. But there was a catch. When the show aired on Kids WB Saturday mornings and weekday afternoons, they would always play promos for what was coming up next at the same time as playing the credits. So the credits that would normally look like this would instead look like this. And not to mention, since they'd usually play the episodes in the afternoon right after I was getting home from school, I'd usually have to record them on a VHS tape. So teenage me is trying to read these squished, grainy VHS quality credits, and I think that I'm seeing Tony A. Campbell as Savage Man. I've never heard of that voice actor. Maybe it's a new guy. There's lots of new actors in this show since there's so many characters. So this credit of Tony A. Campbell as Savage Man is copy-pasted to every site imaginable back then. Turns out what I was actually reading was Tony Alcantar as Spike Man. This was a totally different character, originally named Needleman. They, for some reason, renamed him to Spike Man in the dub. And as it turned out, on the very next page of credits, Scott McNeil, who is the voice of Gutsman, Shademan, all of the Cutman brothers, and many other characters, was actually the voice of Savage Man. He had actually done that Dr. Claw voice for Blanca in that infamously crappy American Street Fighter cartoon.
And what have you done with my brothers?
Years later, I meet Scott McNeil at a convention. This is by the time that I'm already working as a voice actor myself professionally. I tell him this story, and he's like, well, that's pretty funny. Now you've got a pseudonym if you ever need to use one. Around that same time, in my web series, Terrain of Magical Expertise, I played Kerbifer and Zeto. To fool audiences into believing they were separate individual characters, I credited myself as Chris Niosi as Kerbifer and as Tony A. Campbell for Zeto. Believe it or not, this actually worked, and I really did fool people into thinking that I was two different actors for these two characters. So I have Mega Man NT Warrior to thank for a pseudonym that actually came in handy. That, and also my inability to read credits correctly. So, hooray! Go watch Mega Man NT Warrior on YouTube. And TOME as well, if you want.